Welcome everybody to this presentation on navigating digital transformation with Azure. My colleague Tasif, who I believe is technical director now at HSO, will be taking us through this. I'm Chris Tilley, Enterprise Architect, your host, and Nina is from marketing. So we'll go through this presentation. The whole presentation will be available online afterwards, and we will have a Q&A at the end, but the Q&A will not be recorded, and any questions you put in the chat will also not be visible on the final recording. So feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll answer them either as we go or at the end. So I'll pass over to Tasif, and thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Tasif.
Thank you very much, Chris, for the introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Tasif Zafar. I'm responsible for technical services within HSO UK. I have been with the business now 18 years this year, and I come from a technical background. So I quite enjoy working in and around technology. As Chris rightly introduced earlier, so the topic that I'm looking to cover today is that the overall digital transformation challenge and some of the challenges that we all are experiencing with the technology, with the pace of the change in technology coming our way, and how to stay ahead of our competition in our respective businesses, and how to navigate through that change. So I think we pretty much all of us find ourselves in this position where we have advancement in the technology that we are already familiar with, or the new technologies like AI or generative AI is coming our way, and everybody is trying to understand, okay, this technology is great, but as a business, as an individual, what is in for me? How can I use this technology to give me an advantage or to innovate in the business? How even I keep up with all this that's coming our way? How do I ensure that my business, I can scale my IT team or internal support teams to stay ahead of this game? How do I even use this technology to differentiate? How I advise the business leaders in the business in terms of the technology and its benefits for the business. How other my competitors are doing, and most importantly is that with all this technology, the one thing in everybody's mind is the security. How I make sure that the new technology that we are deploying or adopting, or the new changes in existing technology that we already have, is to ensure that we stay we stay secure. All these changes require pretty much in a nicest one nice way would be to have a complete digital transformation program, which looks at absolutely everything end to end, from your infrastructure, your virtual machines that you might be running on premises, your SQL servers, how your network is, the security around the network, the different apps that you're running on the on that infrastructure, how those apps are connected and everything. However, those programs are not only quite complex, but they're also very expensive and potentially disruptive as well from the business point of view. And most importantly, requires a massive cultural change in the business, from the existing people who are supporting those systems from their upskilling, as well as to the day-to-day user of those systems as well. And while we see, and as an HSO, we do implement quite large, complex, multi-year those digital transformation programs. But I think one thing is they're becoming very clear is that because of the increased financial pressures and certain industries, especially like retail, for example, where the trading climate is quite challenging, it's becoming difficult to run those complex digital transformation program as an activity that covers as a kind of a one big program. And one of the concept that I quite like, and I think it's very relevant for us, is the strategic optimism, which basically a very theoretical term of defining your destination, how the the good looks like, where you want to be, and then look for the opportunities to work through that. But that destination, that target, that objective does not change. And I think that's a key in a message that I want to get across today, is that while it's great, all this technology and everything that we want to take advantage of, so you work with your partner or work a technology partner or as a business, define where you want to be, what is your destination, and then just look for the things that are more important in terms of the priority, in terms of the challenges that they're causing you to, and work through them. And I will talk you through some of those examples in a minute. And before we go into that, I think the one thing that I like to highlight is that with these complex digital transformation programs, there are a number of things that are absolutely critical. One is by far the most important one is that it needs to be a business-driven transformation program. You need, it's some of the challenges that we generally see in the projects or implementations is when there are IT-led programs, because there is, it's the business is while IT see the value in doing something, but what value it adds to the business, from to the end users. Is it just improving your a technical aspect of what your of your IT landscape, or is it actually adding value to the business, giving you a competitive advantage? So it's important that these programs needs to be the business driven, of course, facilitated and supported by the IT. As I mentioned earlier, it's also very important is that you want to define your target, where you want to be, what is the destination. One of the key concept that it's important for this is the platform first approach, rather than technical, apps and the solutions that we look for. You always look for any problem, you look for a solution in the platform. So you choose the platform, which in this case probably Azure. Because we're working, to say, right, okay, Azure is our platform of choice for any solution, whether it's, let's say, low code or no code, or is data or AI, or even virtualization of your servers, etc., etc. You always look for that solution within that platform. The biggest benefit that this type of approach brings is that the ability and that native connectivity that a platform will offer you between the various components, and the flexibility it will offer you to start with something small and then add component by component or workload by workload to grow. And another key thing is to ensure that you have the right partner. I mean, I can't emphasize the value of having the right partner. Not only from, to a right partner will, of course, work with you to enable you for this transformation, but also will ensure that with their experience they put the right guide rails around this to make sure that you are getting the best value out of your investment. Okay, how does the overall approach look like? So this approach of defining your target and then just looking for some opportunities to grow. And I think the one thing that we are seeing more and more of, and we're seeing a really good adoption, and also real benefits for our clients, is to work in this more of kind of a co-design and co-development approach. When we say co-design, that means is that sitting, as a partner, we work with you as a kind of an extension of your internal IT team, or extension of your business. We bring our industry experience as working with yourselves to identify those opportunities to work on. So, and however, I think we also recognize that as a business, you have a lot of experience of your challenges or your business processes. That's also very key. So working together in this approach that brings the benefit of looking at a problem from two angles, from you as a business and also from your partner's eyes, or from their experience of what they have seen before, to create this. And going back to the point that I made earlier, is that creating that, what a good looks like, what's the destination look like. And this is where your reference architecture would look like, will come in, where you would define, right, okay, this is how, the architecture, whether it's a IT landscape as a business, Yeah, so the reference architecture is the key. This could be a reference business model as well. Not necessarily has to be a technical architecture, but this is where you're defining what your target looks like. And then putting the foundations in place. Now, this is the key thing. Whether you already exist in the cloud and or you are working on your first workload, it's super critical to put the right foundations in place to then develop on. This will include things like, for example, landing zone. Now, what you are basically doing, as you try to illustrate here with a picture of a house, is that you're putting the foundations in place. And if the foundations are right, and everything that you build on top of that will effectively be controlled in that way. This could be all the key things that you would think about, like your identity management, from your security, that how the networking aspects, etc., will work. Creating that that ecosystem basically, which is secure by design, designed to perform, designed to be maintained, and to be monitored as well. So all kind of those foundations that get put in place to start with. And this is where, for example, as HSO, we have number of our accelerators, etc., that will come in, that get deployed at that stage, which then basically provide you, kickstart the process. And I will cover one of them as an example later on. And I think then the key thing is that creating that ecosystem where now we have defined where the destination, where we want to be. We have then put the basic foundations in place, and then working with the partner, to get upskill your people, then existing teams that you have. And this could be, for example, let's just take an example of Power Platform. This could be just, training people on Power Platform, telling your, individual from your organizations to add value, to create those workloads within the low-code scenario. Or could be also training people, for example, something like Power BI, to take advantage of the modern data platform that will be deployed, and so on. So this is, and that's great. So you are training those people, but also at the same time, what we should be looking at as an organization is to put the governance framework around it. So things, this whole citizen development or empowerment of the end user, it's also very much controlled, whether it could be controlled from what get deployed into the production to the what access they have to the data, and all of those things. And also creating, deploying those elements that provides you real-time insight into what is being deployed in Azure. Because one of the challenges that we see with Azure is that if the things are not been defined and the governance structure is not put in place, your Azure cost, for example, can go out of control very quickly. And this is where an experienced partner can make a massive difference to ensure those things, those guide rails have been put in place. And then we sort of, this is great. So this sort of set you for succeed, to succeed in the journey. But the key element comes in right at that, which is the last aspect here, which is the implementation workloads. Now you have gone through the process, upscaling, you put the foundations in place. Now you will identify a number of workloads. Now let's just take an example of a low-code scenario where you're looking to modernize your apps. And you would probably identify a number of business processes that needs to be, that you're looking to develop in your low-code application platform. However, there is a process that of prioritization. So now you might have thousands and thousands of things that you want to do, but you want to look at the things that are more critical to the business, will add the impact, or are the pain point today. And I will touch on a concept that which you can use as a reference to identify them, to prioritize them. But I think the key point that I like to call out here is that you are looking for a very much CI/CD type approach, where you constantly designing, defining, developing, moving them into production, then picking up another workload and doing that. With that, if you go back to the point that I mentioned earlier, is that this is how you're controlling your cost of implementation, but at the same time minimizing the disruption to the day-to-day business. Okay, so let me just quickly talk through the approach that, for example, we use at HSO. But as I said, this is pretty much standard sort of a model and approach that in the cloud adoption world, is that I mean, the first topic pointed out here is inspiration. Now, inspiration is a very interesting topic, because what we see with the client, sometime they need to. We have the technology. Let's just use AI. We know the capabilities of the technologies, but I think one of the challenges that we're seeing with the businesses the businesses are struggling to see how AI can add value to me as a business. So this is where the inspiration piece comes in, and this is where, as for example, as HSO, we can inspire you with the use cases, some references where how that technology has been used, to help you to identify those workloads that you can look to develop. So that's the kind of a first piece. So this could also be helping you to choose the right platform or the right tool as well. And then kind of a move into the next stage, which I touched on earlier, is around the co-design. So let's just say if in integration, you have chosen Azure Integration Services as a platform that you want to develop on, then it's about, right, let's sit together, do the, understand the different type of integrations that you have and agree on the patterns that you would like to use or are fit for the organization and your workloads. And that's the key thing, because what you are trying to do is that very upfront, you are agreeing on basically the rules and the principles of that co-development experience. And then it sort of goes into, which I touched on earlier, which is creating that landing zone, which is around deployment of accelerators, to putting the guardrails, etc., in place, and then creation of the backlog, as I touched on earlier, and then user empowerment, and that sort of a cycle here is what we refer to as implementing those workloads, and they could be small sprints in cases of for various things. For example, whether it's the data workloads or whether it's the app modernization workload, or it could be integration workloads or anything like of that nature. But at all the time, you are working to those principles and that have been put in place, and you are adhering to the structure and the policies, etc., that has been put in place, in this landing zone or this stage, or has been agreed in the co-design. So basically, that with this approach, that you might have multiple iterations of creating those workloads, but they will all adhere to the same set of standards. They all would be, for example, secure by design, because that's what was agreed and put in place in day one. They will all follow to that same destination that we agreed on right up front. And of course, this is where the co-development experience also comes in as well, where the user have been trained and empowered to add the value with your partner of choice to develop those workloads. And then I think that another key aspect that I would like to call out, this is a classic DevOps model in a way, that you are building workloads that you're putting into the production, but those workloads that are already gone live needs to be looked after. Now, this is where I think as I mentioned earlier, a partner can help and to bring that structure and experience in, that when you're building those things, you're also defining and agreeing on, for example, the rules and the principle around how this thing will be monitored, how this thing will be looked after, especially in cases like, for example, the data workloads or an integrations. When you are developing those things, you need to agree on the rules that if this particular integration fails, how a user will be alerted and what actions are needed to get it back working again. So those principles, those rules are actually discussed and agreed and designed in the co-design workshops right early on. Okay, so that was a bit of a theory. Now let's get a little bit more practical and look at some of the things that we think could provide you that reason to start that process. So if you remember the what I touched on earlier, which is this strategic optimism, which talks about, right, this is where we want to go, this is where we want to be, and then start looking for those opportunities. And these are those triggers, those opportunities, that can be used. And we have seen a lot of these examples in our experience where, you start with one element, which then helps you to kickstart this process, and then other workloads will follow. For example, it could be an acquisition. We see in the businesses where they acquire a new business, and that new business is the first one to go onto a specific platform. or adopt a new application, or go down the creating an enterprise integration layer. Another key aspect that I think we should all be looking out for is that if a contract coming to an end, a data center contract, for example, coming to an end, or a specific license renewal coming up, those are the events that you're looking for, because they provide you that business case to get that justification to look to modernize something or move that particular workload into cloud. Also, another thing is that we see certain events, for example, a security breach could also provide that, could be that a point, that trigger that gets that process going. And some of the common ones, which I'm sure you all recognize, which is around a legacy application where towards the end of its life, that's also a trigger that you should be looking for to say, right, instead of is that a starting point for us to start moving workloads into the cloud? I mean, in an experience, whether internal and external, is also a key element. I think COVID has changed lots of things in terms of how the applications are used by your own users, but also by your customers as well. And they are also, we seeing as a catalyst, as a trigger to get some of these workloads or that transformation program started. This could be an offline experience with some of your salespeople that are on the road. It could also be how your customers are interacting with you. They're also sort of in the reasons to look for the opportunities to modernize. Now, this is great, but I think I like to also highlight some of the challenges as well. And then before I move into the entry points. So the challenges are also some of the things that we see start this process. For example, performance issues, right? If you are experiencing performance issues with your application, whether it's an ERP system or your integration or the performance issues with your data platform, that's also is a trigger. That's also is a reason for you to look at the opportunities to adopt some of the new modern tech, which might be in the cloud, or it could be in a hybrid model where you look to move something into the cloud and also look at keeping some of the applications on premises because of the number of reasons. Also look for things like disaster recovery, not having an adequate disaster recovery, or being able to create a disaster recovery solution which is as big, as strong as the one that Microsoft can offer. It's a bit of a challenge. Whereas with the cloud, that becomes a lot more easier to implement. Security, data quality, all those things that I'm sure you all recognize. I think the key point that I want to highlight here is that there is an entry point to your journey to cloud, and there is no one size fit all. There is no right or wrong answer. You could start with any of those entry points, and I will share an example in a minute. You could be starting with, for example, as creating a middleware as an integration solution to start with, and then you look to adopt other workloads as you developed, as your confidence and experience in the cloud grows, moving from middleware into the data platform and so on. So let me just share a quick example, which is quite a kind of very typical one that we see, and we have recently done for one of our clients as well, a company called Trespass, one of our global retailer. If we start generally starts from an integration move, because good gone the days where people like to have the servers and look after those servers. I'm sure we all know the challenges that comes with it, but that's generally kind of a very standard route. Like, let's look at all the VMs, for example, that we're running on premises, as some of you are probably running VMware, and you're probably aware of the Broadcom acquisition that happened recently, and the license cost is going to go through the roof, right? That's an opportunity, right? That's one of the reasons that can be used to move some of those VMs and some of those workloads into Azure, followed by integration. And this classic scenario is very, very interesting, because leading with integration is a key in many cases, because creating that middleware then decouples all those endpoints, giving you an absolute ultimate flexibility to innovate with those applications, to remove one of those endpoints, which could be your website, which could be your POS system, which could be your warehouse management system, with a more modern solution, at a later date. But by decoupling them upfront, giving you that flexibility and reducing your overall risk of going live with 2 or 3 major aspects of your overall business applications or solutions. And data platform is another one. We sometimes see people leading with data platform. You create a modern data platform in cloud, which get fed by all the existing systems, and then those systems gradually start to move into the cloud as well. And we also see people starting with app modernization as well. But again, the point is that entry point will be different for every customer, for every organization, depending on those challenges that I just touched on earlier. Let me quickly go through a couple of examples. One of the examples, as I mentioned, is Trespass. We started Trespass project last year or so. That one of the main reasons that we started that project was the disaster recovery. That they had a particular challenge around that, and when so the initial step or the step into the Azure started with moving all their existing on-premises servers, etc., to Azure, followed by now they're working through another quite a extensive program of looking at the integrations, looking at their ERP systems, and so on. Another interesting example is another customer of HSO, a global brand, Heineken. They started with started with a very unique requirement, which there is no off-the-shelf application and solution. So we built that solution for them to manage all their, they call a brand store, which basically, from beer mat to fridges, all for the pubs, etc. in the UK. That particular solution is pretty much a standalone solution into the cloud, but that could be the first step for them to bring other workloads into the cloud. As I mentioned earlier, is the one of the examples that I want to talk you through is that how could you lead with integration, and how does a partner like HSO can help, and how it could look like. So from our point, this is our approach. The way we do this is that you probably noticed the inspiration stage is not in here. We're assuming that we decided on we've gone through that stage and we agreed on, right, Azure being the platform that we want to use. How would we start that? So we do a bit of a discovery, understand what exists. Definition is that's where your code design, code development piece comes in, and then you go into the implementation phase. That's just another view of the same diagram that I showed you earlier. But the key point to highlight is the bottom. The project management and the governance run pretty much through all those stages to help you to put that guardrail, that structure around it. And whether it's so the code development is an interesting concept. We see customers who work to as a partner, we're doing everything, to them doing most of the things, or somewhere in the middle. So this model is very flexible, and it depends on the requirements from and the internal skills that you might have in the business. But another key aspect to highlight is that everything is designed to be monitored and managed throughout the process. Let me just quickly show you another way how it looks like. So I talked about, as a partner, creating that landing zone, creating that first, your footprint, into the Azure, which is built on that experience of making sure its design is performant and all of those things, that then you can then start creating multiple integration scenarios to go with it. And of course, we have done it a number of times, and I'm sure that any partners that you work with would have done it a number of times. They would have some accelerators to go with it that they get deployed on day one to speed up that implementation. So it's not only you're starting with an experience of having done it multiple times, how should that be done, but also bringing those reusable components that can be tied into your tenant, to your requirements, to speed up the implementation. And all those things that are designed and developed, there are sort of adhering to all those key principles for cloud that you would expect, i.e. being secure by definition, are from the performance point of view, the identity management, the governance, and how the monitoring of that solution will work. I think that's about it. Of course, this is an interesting topic, and you can carry on for a much longer time. That's me from all what I wanted to cover. more than happy to answer any questions you might have.